Welcome to our deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about self-awareness,
Okay.
and we're going to be looking at it through the lens of Stephen Fleming's book,
Okay.
Know Thyself, The Science of Self-Awareness.
Mhm.
And I thought it'd be really interesting to explore this topic
Yeah.
with you,
Well,
given your background in philosophy.
awesome.
So yeah,
I'm excited.
we're going to be kind of unpacking the science behind self-awareness and then
Yeah.
also like its philosophical implications and, how it impacts our lives.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this really captivating blend of neuroscience and philosophy. And I think what's really cool about Fleming's book is that he doesn't just present the science. He actually delves into how these discoveries intersect with like these age-old philosophical questions
Right.
about, consciousness, perception, the nature of reality, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And he starts off talking about uncertainty and self-doubt, which,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, it might seem kind of counterintuitive at first, but stick with me here.
Okay.
He uses this example of Adelson's checkerboard illusion.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen that before?
I think so. Remind me.
So it's like this checkerboard, and there are these two squares labeled A and B,
Okay.
and one of them looks way darker than the other,
Uh-huh.
but they're actually the same shade.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's just this really cool visual illusion that shows how our brains kind of grapple with these like inverse problems in perception,
Right.
right? Like we're constantly getting all this sensory data, and our brain has to figure out
Yeah.
like what's actually real based on that limited information.
Exactly. And it's like our brains are always trying to solve this puzzle.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, what is the true nature of the world
Right.
given this, like you said, limited information?
Right. And so like how does it do that?
Well, Fleming talks about this framework called business theorem,
Okay.
which basically says that our brains are like these probability machines.
Yeah.
They combine the sensory data we're getting with our prior knowledge and then make a calculated guess
Mm-hmm.
about what's most likely to be true.
So it's always updating
Exactly. It's constantly updated.
based on new evidence.
Yeah. It's like we have these beliefs about the world,
Right.
and then we're constantly kind of tweaking them
With
as
it.
we get new information.
So like if we're thinking about this from a philosopher's perspective,
Yeah.
like what are some of the implications of that?
Well, it really challenges this whole notion of objective truth.
Right.
Right? If our reality is essentially a controlled hallucination, like Fleming puts it,
Yeah.
which is essentially a best guess based on probabilities,
Yeah.
then what does that say about our understanding of knowledge and the external world?
Right. It's like, whoa.
It's like, yeah, is anything actually real?
Yeah.
Or is it all just our brain's interpretation?
Right. And then he goes on to connect this to like a real life example.
Oh, okay.
This pre-diver James Nestor.
Okay.
And for him, like accurate self-awareness, like knowing his limits is literally a matter of life or death
Wow.
when he's diving hundreds of feet underwater.
Right, because if he misjudges his oxygen or, how much time he has,
Yeah.
that could be it.
Yeah.
It's really high stakes.
Yeah. And it just highlights like how crucial self-awareness is for
Yeah.
just navigating the world and making decisions.
Totally.
But it also begs the question, is this,
Yeah.
is this capacity unique to humans?
That's a great question. And Fleming actually touches upon this fascinating study
Okay.
with a dolphin named Nachua.
Okay.
And Nachua was trained to identify different sounds.
Okay.
But here's the really cool part. He could actually signal when he was uncertain about an answer,
Wow.
suggesting a level of metacognition.
So thinking about thinking.
Yeah, thinking about thinking. Pretty mind-blowing,
That's wild.
right? Like if a dolphin can do it,
Yeah.
what does that say about the nature of consciousness?
Yeah. Where does this self-awareness come from?
Exactly. And how did it evolve?
Right. So to kind of delve into that, Fleming goes into the biological basis of self-awareness.
Right.
And he specifically highlights the unique aspects of the human brain.
Okay.
So compared to other primates, we have this expanded association cortex and a much larger prefrontal cortex, which is involved in things like planning, decision-making, and
Yep.
self-control.
Right.
And he even mentions this thing called the neuronal scaling law,
Okay.
where humans are outliers in terms of neuron density in the cortex.
Interesting.
So it really makes you ponder
Yeah.
what makes human consciousness so distinct,
Right.
and what is it about our brain structure that might be driving this?
Yeah. And so I guess like the question for you as a philosopher is,
Yeah.
does this biological basis diminish the significance of self-awareness?
Right.
Or does it enhance it in some way?
Yeah, is it just a product of evolution, or is there something more profound going on?
Yeah, it's a question that's like puzzled philosophers for centuries.
And now we have like neuroscience kind of providing these new avenues
Yeah.
to explore it.
It's really exciting to see how these two fields are coming together
Totally.
to shed light on these big questions.
Yeah, and then he takes us into the realm of mind reading, which is the ability to understand other people's thoughts and beliefs.
Uh-huh.
And it might seem like a bit of a leap,
Yeah.
but he connects it back to metacognition.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so he discusses this thing called the second order model,
Okay.
which suggests that the same neural machinery that's involved in self-awareness is also used to think about other minds.
Whoa. That's a pretty profound connection.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
It makes you think about like the nature of self and other.
Yeah,
right? Like, does our ability to reflect on our own minds actually emerge from our interactions with other minds?
Right.
That's a really interesting idea.
It challenges like that traditional Cartesian view of the self as this like solitary entity.
Right, like this isolated mind.
Yeah, and it points towards this more like interconnected understanding.
Yeah, a more relational view of consciousness.
Exactly.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, if our sense of self is like shaped by our social interactions, then where do those boundaries?
Yeah, where does the self end and the other begin?
Right.
That's a question that's been debated for millennia.
Yeah.
And Fleming's work really provides this fresh perspective,
Right.
grounded in scientific evidence.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's what's so cool about this book is that it's not just like, theoretical. It's actually based on...
Right. It's grounded in empirical research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really interesting stuff.
Definitely. But, for all its power, self-awareness is surprisingly fragile.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Fleming brings up this really interesting case of LM, a stroke patient, who lost awareness of her paralysis because of brain damage.
So she didn't realize she was paralyzed.
Exactly. It's like her brain couldn't process that information anymore.
Wow, that's wild. I mean, it just highlights like how this ability we often take for granted
totally
has this physical basis in the brain.
Yeah.
And it can be disrupted.
It can, and it makes you think about all the philosophical implications, right? Like, what does that mean for our understanding of free will and responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, if someone is unaware of their actions because of neurological damage, can they truly be held accountable?
It's a tough question.
Yeah, it challenges like those traditional notions of culpability.
It really does.
And Fleming also explores how things like stress anxiety, even cultural differences, can influence metacognition.
Oh, totally.
Like we're not always the best judges of our own knowledge and abilities.
Like we have these blind spots.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're completely unaware of them.
He talks about this concept of metacognitive failure, where our sense of knowing can be totally off.
Exactly. Like, think about a student studying for an exam. They might feel super confident about certain topics, but completely miss the mark on their actual understanding.
And then end up using like bad study strategies.
Exactly. And it highlights how important metacognition is for education.
Yeah.
Right? If we want to be effective learners, we need to cultivate accurate self-awareness.
Right. Knowing what we know and what we don't know.
Exactly. It's about knowing your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. And he also talks about this idea of desirable difficulty in learning.
Oh, yeah. That's a really cool concept.
Like challenging ourselves, even if it feels frustrating, can actually lead to a deeper understanding.
It's counterintuitive, but it's true.
Yeah, it's like that smooth, effortless learning isn't always the most effective.
Right.
Sometimes struggling with a concept actually forces us to engage more deeply.
Yeah, you have to wrestle with it a bit
to
really make it stick.
And this ties into decision-making, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like metacognition plays this crucial role in how we make choices. And our confidence levels can really influence the paths we take.
Yeah. Fleming talks about this tension between confidence and accuracy. Like, overconfidence can make us persuasive and assertive, but it can also lead to some pretty bad decisions.
If we're not careful.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah, and he even brings up research on the SAT.
Oh, yeah.
Where until recently, the scoring system actually rewarded guessing.
Wow.
Even if students weren't sure of the answer.
Interesting.
So it suggests that, like, those who scored higher weren't necessarily more intelligent, but they were better at strategically guessing.
They had better metacognition.
Yeah, like knowing when to take a calculated risk.
Exactly.
It makes you think about how many other systems in our society might be unintentionally rewarding certain metacognitive styles over others.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and then he gets into collaboration.
Oh, cool.
How does self-awareness impact like our ability to work with others.
Yeah, that's a big one.
He says that groups can actually make more accurate decisions than individuals,
Okay.
but only if they accurately communicate their confidence levels.
Interesting.
It's not just sharing your opinion, but
Yeah.
also like how sure you are about it.
Yeah, like imagine a group of doctors trying to diagnose a patient.
Okay.
If one doctor is highly confident but wrong,
Mhm.
and another doctor is less confident but has the right idea,
Right.
the group's decision could be swayed in the wrong direction.
If they don't take those confidence levels into account.
Exactly.
So it's not always the loudest voice in the room
Right,
that's the most accurate.
It's about being aware of your own biases
Yeah.
and being open to perspectives that challenge your assumptions.
He also talks about how self-awareness impacts our ability to explain our actions,
Oh, interesting.
both to ourselves and to others.
Uh-huh.
And he brings up these split brain patients.
Okay.
So these are individuals who have had the connection between the two hemispheres of their brain severed.
Wow, that sounds like something out of science fiction.
It does, right?
Yeah.
But it actually reveals some really profound insights
That.
into consciousness and self-awareness.
So what did they find?
So researchers found that when the hemispheres are disconnected,
Uh-huh.
the left hemisphere often tries to make up explanations
Oh, wow.
for actions initiated by the right hemisphere.
So it's like one part of the brain is trying to rationalize what the other part is doing.
Yeah, and it often gets it wrong.
That's
It
fascinating.
really challenges like our assumptions about the unity of the self
Right.
and the nature of conscious control.
Like if even our own brains can be fooled into believing we're in control when we might not be.
What does that say about like our sense of autonomy?
Yeah, and decision making.
It's humbling.
It is. It
Yeah.
really makes you question some of your most deeply held beliefs about yourself.
Right, and that's what I find so compelling about this intersection of neuroscience and philosophy.
Me too. It's like
Yeah.
these two fields are coming together
Yeah.
to really challenge our understanding of what it means to be human.
Totally.
Mhm.
And now with like all this AI stuff happening,
Mhm.
it feels like this whole conversation about self-awareness is getting even more
Yeah.
complex.
A whole new dimension.
Yeah, like can we create machines that are truly self-aware?
Right.
And if so, like what does that mean for us?
Yeah, those are some big questions.
Yeah, and Fleming like really dives into that
He does.
in the book.
Yeah.
Um,
What does he say?
well, he talks about the challenges of building self-aware machines.
Okay.
And one of the biggest hurdles is this thing called representational redescription.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that term.
Yeah, so it's basically the ability to take knowledge that's like implicitly encoded in a system,
Ugh.
like say the weights of a neural network,
Okay.
and make it explicit.
So like something that can be reflected upon and communicated.
It's like the difference between knowing something unconsciously
Right.
and being able to actually think about what,
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and he used this example of like a neural network that's trained to predict loan defaults.
Okay.
So the network might get really good at its task,
Uh-huh.
but it can't actually explain how it's doing it.
Interesting.
The knowledge is like locked away,
Right.
inaccessible to introspection.
So it's like a black box.
Kind of, yeah.
You get the output, but you don't know the process.
Right, and so this raises a really interesting question for you as a philosopher.
Okay, shoot.
Is explicit self-awareness even necessary for intelligence?
Whoa. That's a deep one.
Right,
Yeah, it makes you wonder if there could be other forms of intelligence out there.
right.
Forms that we don't even recognize.
Because they don't fit our human-centric definition.
Exactly. Like maybe we're limiting ourselves by thinking about intelligence
Oh.
only in terms of what we know.
Yeah, and Fleming actually brings up these researchers, Andy Clark
Okay.
and Annette Karmeloff-Smith,
Uh-huh.
who argue that self-aware minds engage in this process of
Uh-huh.
making implicit knowledge explicit.
So they're saying that's like a key feature.
Yeah, like it's almost like taking those hidden connections in the brain and
Like
translating them.
into a language we can understand.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
communicate.
So if we want to create machines that are truly self-aware.
Right,
Maybe that's the key.
right. Like they need to be able to not only perform tasks intelligently,
Uh-huh.
but also like explain their reasoning,
Right.
adapt to new situations, learn from their mistakes.
All those hallmarks of human-like self-awareness.
Yeah, and there's some like really cool attempts to create artificial metacognition.
Oh, really? Like what?
So Fleming talks about building neural networks that can like monitor their own performance
Okay.
and adjust their strategies
So like they're becoming self-aware.
in a way.
Yeah.
One approach is to add like a separate metacognitive network
Okay.
that observes the main network's activity
Uh-huh.
and judges its confidence levels.
So it's like giving the AI a little inner critic.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
No, yeah. And it raises some really interesting
Yeah.
ethical questions.
Like, what happens if we create machines that can actually think about their own thinking?
Right. Do they have rights?
Yeah. What responsibilities do we have towards them?
And how do we make sure that they're aligned with human values?
Those are some heavy questions.
Yeah, it's like we're entering this whole new territory.
It's like science fiction is becoming reality.
Right.
Yeah.
And Fleming also talks about a more like pragmatic approach.
Okay, what's that?
So instead of trying to create self-aware machines from scratch,
Uh-huh.
what if we focus on harnessing human metacognition
Okay.
to like monitor and control AI systems?
Interesting. So, like, we're the ones in charge.
Yeah, like we become the pilots of these powerful AI systems using our metacognitive skills
Right.
to kind of navigate this complex landscape of the future.
It's like a collaboration between humans and machines.
Exactly, each contributing their unique strengths.
That's a cool vision.
Yeah, and I think Fleming does a really good job of like not giving us definitive answers,
Mm-hmm.
but leaving us with some really profound questions. Like does the science of self-awareness like diminish its significance?
Right.
Or does it actually enhance our appreciation for its complexity?
Yeah. And if self-awareness is a product of evolution, is it just an illusion?
Right.
Or is it like a fundamental aspect of human existence?
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
It really is.
And I think for me, like one of the biggest takeaways from this book is that self-awareness isn't just this like fixed trait.
Right.
It's something that we can cultivate and refine.
It's a process.
Yeah, throughout our lives.
Yeah.
And by understanding how it works,
Uh-huh.
we can actually harness its power.
To become better learners, decision makers,
Yeah.
collaborators,
Yeah.
all of that.
So it's been a fascinating deep dive
It really has.
into the science and philosophy of self-awareness.
Yeah, we've covered so much.
We've talked about the brain mechanisms behind self-reflection,
Uh-huh.
the challenges of creating self-aware machines,
Right.
the ethical considerations of AI.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind.
But ultimately, I think the most important thing is to like take this knowledge
Right.
and use it to enhance our own self-awareness.
Yeah, and navigate the future.
Right. Because the future's coming, whether we're ready or not.
That's true.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
This was awesome.
It was great talking with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.